director of sales walks in and I'm talking, he reaches over and turns my screen upside down somehow.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to turn it back, so I
This
just.
is yours, I stole it. Oh, 'cause I didn't get
Mine
that
only goes
word.
sideways.
Oh, that one, yeah.
I rebooted it.
Well,
Really?
and I'm like, it's not working to share it with you.
Can I just share it?
I'll sign my
I could
plans,
share
I'm not worried
Sam.
about it at the moment, I have a paper agenda, so.
Sam's not gonna do anything tonight anyways.
I read my
That's
notes,
what
I
you
know
think.
what's coming.
You get through a
What's
big.
new?
Just got done talking to some constituents.
Did you? You're gonna go out with a bang?
Yep. Got a bunch of stuff to add to the agenda.
That was the consent agenda.
Got a new Stockwell guy tonight.
We're gonna talk about needs employment.
Mitch, how you doing?
Did he call me? No.
Oh, I must be his favorite.
Text.
person. Oh, I got a phone call. Mitch Mergen. Said he wasn't gonna be here tonight.
Oh, you're over there. Jesus, I've already been replaced.
Yeah, you're fine. You got it.
Hey there. This
Hey,
is
Bill. Can you hear us okay?
I didn't even have
Yeah, I got you. I was just using the regular dial-in number, but that wasn't working.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, if it's just you, we'll call you in. It's a little easier.
That's perfect.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
I'm gonna move the table to the next meeting. Bringing back the master plan tonight, Dave?
Yes, yes. See what we think. So,
Perfect.
yeah, we just did it for Del Rapids. And, we're doing it for, we did it for Watertown last year. We're working on one in Livingston, Montana right now. So,
Where's Livingston from? A big city in Montana.
it's, you fly into Bozeman, and then it's like south from there.
Okay.
It's the gateway to Yellowstone National Park. It's like 10,000 people or something.
Decent size.
Beautiful setting, like it's
I'm sure.
right
Yeah.
on the Yellowstone River, like mountains all around. Yeah.
Probably don't mind taking trips out there.
No, I don't. I luckily didn't have to go during the winter, so.
Yeah.
What, next week.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Good evening. Do we have any additions to the agenda this evening?
Mayor and Council, two requested changes here. I'd like to delete item 3K, the auto engagement letter. And we will add item 3L, special event alcohol permit. That's for the street dance, the commercial club.
Okay. All right, so take off K there where it's the audit engagement letter. And then adding in, which would be L, special event alcohol permit.
That's for the Independence Day festivities.
All right. Look for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. On to visitors to be heard. Anyone care to come to the podium and share for 2 minutes? Please come up. All right, seeing that there's none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Nate, anything you'd like to draw attention to?
A couple items here, Mayor and Council. Item E, these are your malt liquor licenses for the year. The other licenses are approved, I think it's February if I remember right. We approved the other liquor licenses. Everything seems to be in order. We've got to send those on to the state. Got 2 deeds in there, one for property to the city of Lennox, and that's from LADC. There's a small lot, I think it's track 2 of the creek subdivision that was mistakenly transferred in the planning process. That's coming back to us. Then as we've discussed, 505 South Garfield will go to LABC for them to put a new house on. Seasonal positions, that is just the campground hosts, administrative and media assistants. This is to accept the resignation and to advertise for the position. Just a note, today we had 2 interviews already, so this is already happening. A part-time paramedic to add. Project Boundary Fence is an interesting project. It's with Dakota State University through the South Dakota Attorney General's office. Basically to do a cybersecurity assessment on us. And they're gonna try and get into our stuff and find out where our weaknesses are. So, good project for us to be involved in. Museum project, change orders, pretty self-explanatory, but I did put a brief description in the memo for what each of those were. I think the net change to us is an addition of about just under $8,000 if I remember right. Then we do have, I received a pay application late today, but that'll have to wait until the next meeting. And then the special event permit, everything seems to be pretty much the same as it has been the last few years. We've been really pleased with how things have gone with the commercial club the last couple of years. Eric Mockmuller has been heading that up for a while. It has been really easy to work with, very receptive to ideas and feedback, especially when it comes to crowd control and security. We do have a couple of things that we'll want to talk through with him, with Chief Erickson, but overall everything looks good.
Good. Any discussion over the consent agenda from council? All right.
I'm excited about the project boundary fence agreement with Dakota State. That'll be a good review for us to go through and see where we've got some holes.
Yeah, it's good timing. We've got a cybersecurity policy that's been sitting on my desk for a little while. I kind of want to wrap this up before we consider that policy, just to make sure that we're kind of on the right track here. But that cybersecurity policy was crafted by our IT provider, and RASTEC also suggested we participate in this program. So happy for their help.
Any other discussion? All right, seeing that there's none, I'll look for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We'll do roll call. Mauer.
Aye.
Swear.
Aye.
Welch.
Aye.
And Drill.
Aye.
Bowers.
Aye.
Doherty.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. On to 4, old business ordinance noise restrictions.
Mayor and Council, this is first discussed and read at the April 28 meeting. Since that time, I met with the owner of Total Stop and the neighbors in that neighborhood to discuss the ordinance and its impact. The group recommended removing the zoning restrictions and instead focus on the behavior of the owners and operators of the idling trucks. This version of the ordinance has removed that language and clarified language that specifically referred to Sioux Falls. This does qualify as a substantial change, so this is, we're recommending another first reading tonight.
Any discussion?
So the property owners feel good about the situation, the Total Stop feels good about the situation.
I think everybody reached a bit of a common ground. I don't think Total Stop is in love with it yet.
Yeah.
But this is a better scenario than it was.
Yep.
I think there's still concern from Total Stop that this is impacting the customer base, which you can certainly understand. And for the part of the neighbors, even make clear that even let's say this ordinance passes, and the next night we've got the same issue, and there's no operator there, nobody in the truck, nobody nearby. We're gonna ticket it, but you're still gonna have to deal with that all night. That's probably gonna last for a while until the enforcement becomes, I don't know if consistent enough is the word, but until it has an impact. But the group seemed to think that it would not take long for that to happen.
I mean, weren't we essentially doing that already?
We can't ticket it, no. That's the difference.
I thought we weren't gonna go forward with that now.
The ticketing?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if we can find, if the owner or operator is there, able to be reached, we can take those initial steps, but if nobody's
But we're
there.
ticketing total stop, right?
No,
No.
so that would be the difference, that the previous version with the zoning changes
Right.
would have allowed us to find total stop if it continues to be a nuisance, basically. This version removes that language. So it's just the actual behavior that's being penalized.
I didn't read through this in terms of, like in regards to Independence Day and around there too. Is that gonna cause any sort of, hey, we have a noise ordinance in play that, I don't know, for
There
example.
was an exemption for special events.
Okay,
Bear with me.
exceptions.
I mean, as long as they're all on the same page, I guess it's fine with me. I just don't know that it's gonna change anything based on the changes that were made.
Yeah, so it's the city-sponsored events are exempt, there's an exception.
Does that cover commercial club though?
That's kind of what I'm curious about.
Or does the commercial club need to come and have us, city council, endorse it that's the
I mean-
city sponsored event?
On the
Right.
special events permit, we do ask if it's going to be, I feel like there's a question on there about noise already. When I filled it out for Lions Club. So-
Yeah, it says, what are the hours of the event for noise?
Yep.
And will city noise ordinances be considered, and it's just a yes or no question.
Right, so I think the form still kind of covers that, and by us accepting the special events permit, then I feel like. and-
We've given approval to the.
That's how I would read it, I don't know if that's how our attorney would take it, but,
Cause that's like 10 o'clock at night, right, the fireworks?
Yeah, street dance class until,
Yeah.
two.
I think it's done at 1, but there's cleanup after, or done at midnight.
Well, and then we can do fireworks now with our revised ordinance too, so there might need to be,
Clarification on, or something change.
yeah. We don't want one ordinance conflicting with another.
About motorcycles with loud pipes. If I roll back into town at 10:30, do I have to push my bike?
It's not specifically prohibited. And if it's something that is, it's not a standing vehicle, right? It's something that's actively being used. It's not something that's continuous for, I think, 10 minutes is what we said in here, 10 or 15 minutes. Then I think you're fine. I don't think that's something we could cite you for.
Just don't race.
Yeah,
Don't
I mean,
raise
it's
that.
No
no
street
different,
racing.
no different than anybody coming into town with a semi or
Right.
even a pickup.
Although
just trying.
dynamic braking is already prohibited.
Right. But you could have an older pickup with glass packs or whatever,
Yeah.
make all kind of racket. It's no difference in the more.
We do have in here too, permits may be issued for any activity conducted between the hours of 6 AM and 10:30 PM. Special permit for a location may be granted allowing for extended time or decibel levels on a case-by-case basis. So there are allowances in here for events. We may have to create a new permit, that's beyond the special event permit, but
Right.
Does our law enforcement team have a decibel,
They
a
will.
tool to measure decibels?
yeah, they're gonna have to order some. They're not cheap.
So then my question is it common to list decibels in a noise ordinance of a town our size, or do we just kind of do case by case basis? We have this ordinance, but it's kind of a, if you get a complaint, the officer goes out there and addresses it kind of thing.
I think
I think this is, yeah, go ahead.
I think you have to have something measurable. I mean, just like tint on windows. I mean, they have, just because you might get variations depending on the officer too. I think.
Looked at as favoritism or whatever.
Yeah, and so-
This or that guy.
Yeah, I still think there's a little bit of judgment of, their own judgment in situations, just like, they can give you a ticket or a warning kind of thing. So I think Will's intention too is to have a conversation with them first before, so I'm thankful for that. RPD will do that instead of just throwing out tickets right away. So I lean towards having some sort of instrument to actually measure it, but.
It's something objective, and that's one of the things that we look for when we're trying to enforce an ordinance is whether we can objectively say, yes, this is violating, or just like, a speed radar is going to tell us where you're at, and it's going to be calibrated every day. In terms of other towns our size, I don't know any that have this extensive of a noise ordinance.
Well, it's me looking at it, I'm like, this is a lot of different numbers to remember,
Yeah.
and a lot of different times to remember,
There's
so I
gonna be a lot
didn't
of
know if
training,
there
yeah.
was, like, just a standard across the board, if we have to have a decibel measure, like, is there a decibel that's reasonable for all these different categories, rather than going from 55 in one category all the way up to 89 in another? Like, that's a lot for our officers to have to, they'll have to have that in their back pocket when they get a noise complaint.
They're definitely going to have to reference this whole thing, when and if it happens.
Would it make more sense to take it back to Will and his team to review and maybe look at what other communities are doing and identify if this is within their capacity? So it's a lot of training that we're gonna need to.
Yeah, Will was part of the subgroup that came up with this language. I think it was me, Will, you, and Bill. He's happy with it. I wouldn't think he'd suggest any more changes. But he was hoping to have something that we could enforce. Because right now we can't. We do have to get decibel.
Yeah, that was exactly what Will had said, is by having a noise ordinance, they actually have the ability to know what to enforce instead of receive phone calls and not be able to do anything because there's no ordinance or anything that kind of dictates what is right or wrong. And this allows our police department to act judiciously for our citizens.
For the next reading too, we can maybe have Will available for some of these questions too, but, or maybe touch base with them, but you can have them available.
Yep.
But yeah, I feel like we went through it pretty thoroughly initially, and a lot of it came from the Sioux Falls ordinance, very, very similar. And just a reminder, Brett went through this as well.
I think at some point we need to give our police department some ownership in this, and if this is what Will and his team believe is the best course of action. I guess I trust Will and his department, so I will make a motion to approve the first reading of ordinance 658 noise restrictions.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the first reading of ordinance 658, noise restrictions. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. On to ordinance 660, 2024 supplemental appropriations.
Mayor and Council, this is the final reading for the supplemental budget for last year to true up the end of your budget with actual spending. I won't read through all the notes again this time, did that last time. There have been no changes since the first reading at the last April 28th meeting. Recommend the motion to approve second reading.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Is there a delay? Tyson, you can figure that one out.
Give one of them to him at least.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. And on to adjournment. Before we adjourn though, I'd like to just say a couple words to our exiting council members too. So just want to say on behalf of the city council and our staff and the entire council, we're very thankful for you guys' service. So, and even me personally, I want to extend my deepest thanks to Brittany and Sam for welcoming me on this fun journey that we get to be on. You guys were very welcoming, so thank you. And I'm gonna miss you. And also, just your dedication does go beyond, just sitting here and shaping the policy and casting votes. So you guys have both poured your hearts and soul into the city, working far above and beyond what we thought we were going to. Just want to thank you for that. Your guys' vision and integrity and compassion really does shine through. So serving in public office, as you know, is often a thankless job, but your commitment has not gone unnoticed. So again, for me, as the mayor, thank you both. And you guys, your impact will be felt for many years to come. So thank you guys.
Well said, Danny. Agreed.
All right, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, we are adjourned.
Just leave that.
I'll pick it up.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. We live in a really small town, so we can see each other.
Right.
Seeing you every week. Thank you. Bye.
It's found money.
Well, I feel like I keep.
Yes, got it.
All right, I'd like to call this meeting to order, a convening of new council, new city council. Nate, you have anything, or we'll just go on to item B?
Just a note that the oath of office is up there for each member.
Yep. All right, we'll start with B, oath of office of Ward 3, Alderman Laura Teasy. Why don't you come on up, Teasy? Laura? I had to keep reminding myself how to say your last name, so I checked with Chad, so if it was wrong, it's his fault.
You pronounced it correctly, and I misspelled it everywhere.
Oh, I probably missed, yeah.
I just corrected it in board docs, but it's 2 S's.
There we go. All right. Oh. Let's see here. Do I read this to Laura? And then...
Yes.
Okay. So I'll just repeat after me. I'll try to do a few words at a time. So, I do solemnly swear.
I do solemnly swear.
Or affirm. That I will support the Constitution of the United States.
That I will support the Constitution of the United States.
And the Constitution of the State of South Dakota.
And the Constitution of the State of South Dakota.
And that I will faithfully discharge duties.
And that I will favorably discharge duties.
Of alderman for the city of Lennox.
All that they are meant.
Of aldermen for the city of
Lennox.
Lennox, Lincoln County,
Lincoln County.
to my best of my ability.
To the best of my ability.
This is sworn before me on the 12th day of May, 2025. We have her sign it now?
Yes,
Two? Okay.
please. You can sign later too. It doesn't-
All right.
doesn't matter that much.
Congratulations, by the way. Happy to have you. All right, you can have a seat. Do you have to vote on this one?
Nope.
Nope, okay. It's my first time doing this, bear with me.
No problem.
All right, and then we're gonna do an appointment and oath of office for Ward 1, so, what's up here? So this, I'll look for a motion, to appoint Rob Peterson as Ward 1 Alderman.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to appoint Rob Peterson for Ward 1 Alderman. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. Rob's here yet, he didn't run out, so come on up, Rob. So Rob, thanks for your willingness to serve in this vacancy. Do the same thing, I'll say this, you can repeat after me. So, I do solemnly swear or affirm
Solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of South Dakota,
and the Constitution of the State of South Dakota,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully discharge
duties of Alderman for the City of Lennox,
the duties of Alderman for the City of Lennox,
Lincoln County,
Lincoln County,
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
All right, Rob is sworn in here on the 12th day of May. I'll have you sign this. All right. Thank you, Rob. All right. Now we're on to city council organization. We have the first agenda item then is the election of president and vice president.
Motion to nominate Chad Swear as president.
Second.
Okay, we have a nomination for Chad Swear for president. And a second. Any discussion? All right.
Chad has been judicious in his time on the council, so I would expect that to continue.
We'll do our best.
All right. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries to appoint Chad Swear as the president of the city council. And now we have a vacancy for vice
I'd like
president.
to make a motion to appoint Bill Doherty for vice president.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to appoint Bill Doherty as vice president for city council. Any discussion? All right.
He also has done an excellent job.
All right. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. Bill, vice president. Okay. We got a handful of other appointments here as well. Bear with me. All right, so we have a appointment of the city attorney. And so I would like to ask for a motion to approve the appointment of Brett Larvin as the city attorney.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. On to the city engineer. So I look for a motion to approve my appointment for Stockwell Engineers as the city engineer.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. On to the official newspaper. Drum roll. Motion, I'd like a motion to designate the Lennox Independent as the city newspaper of record.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. All right, the moment everyone's been waiting for, committee appointments. So as you're aware, we have the different committees broke up into, to be served by different city council members. So I'm gonna read these off, and we can email these out later, so if you can't keep up, you can do that as well. But for the streets, water, and sewer, we have Billy Welch as the chair, Bill Doherty and Rob Peterson. For zoning and planning, Lauren Vandrill as chair, Chad Swear and Laura Teasy. For police, fire, and ambulance, Rob Peterson is the chair, Billy Welch and Lauren Vandrill. Finance, economic development, Bill Doherty is chair, Chad Swear and Laura Teasy. Library, solid waste weeds is Laura Teasy is chair, Rob Peterson and Billy Welch. And then Parks and Recreation, we have Chad Swear as chair, Lauren Vandrill and Bill Doherty. I think everyone is on 3. And then we'll look for a motion to approve the mayor's committee assignments.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second, all in favor? Actually, I'll ask for any discussion first. Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. That is it for the appointments. Okay, thanks everyone. On to new business, we have ash tree removal project, change order and final pay application. Nate.
Mayor and Council, this is the final change order and then final pay change order number 1 and then final pay application for the ash tree removal project. Original contract price was just under $59,000. Contract final at just over $59,000. So the net impact of a change order is just a quantity adjustment of $320. So what we'll look for here is 2 motions. The first to approve the change order and second to approve the pay application. I would note in terms of timeline here, the contract deadline on this project was June 27th for the entire project. They wrapped this up almost 2 months ahead of time.
All right. I'll look for a motion to approve the change order.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. And then I'll look for a motion to approve the final pay application.
Motion approved, final pay application.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the final pay application. All in favor signify by saying, we have to do roll call for this.
Probably a good idea.
Yep, I will. Okay. We'll do roll call for this. Swear,
Aye.
Welch,
Aye.
Doherty,
Aye.
Teasy,
Aye.
Peterson,
Aye.
Vandrill.
Aye.
All right, motion does carry. All right, on to B, master park plan.
Mayor and Council, the Lennox Park Board has recommended approval of work order establishing a master park plan. Over the course of several months this past winter, the Park Board worked with Stockwell to propose a work order establishing this plan. Work is partially board driven and partially at the direction of council and mayor. Part of the intent there was to include a master park plan in the capital improvement plan, or at least the improvements of the master park plan. So the plan in front of you tonight, the work order in front of you for discussion is recommended for approval by the Park Board at their March meeting. The presentation of that plan was at the February meeting if you wish to watch. But David is here from Stockwell to give a brief overview of the plan. It's very similar to the plan that was put in place in Del Rapids. David's got plenty of experience with this type of work in communities large and small. And I'll turn it over to him here in a second. The big question mark on this is the cost and funding. Kind of lay that out a little bit in the memo. Yep, I'll turn it over to David.
Thanks, Nate. Good evening, council. My name is David with Stockwell, landscape architect with our firm. Before you guys, as Nate said, is a work order for Citywide Parks Master Plan. So this helps really lay the groundwork and the vision for the park system the next 5, 10 plus years down the road. This plan will help guide decisions when we look at budgeting and okay, what does the community want us to improve upon? What does the community want to see us expand upon? And so we worked through all of that as a part of this Parks Master Plan. I went into it, if you guys watched the February Park Board meeting, I went into a little bit more in-depth in regards to each of the phases. Just for this evening, I'll just give you a brief overview of each phase. So there's a total of 5 phases as a part of the Master Parks Plan. Phase 1 is project kickoff. So we talked through with you guys in regards to what you want to see for goals, who are stakeholders that we want to engage in the community, and the timeline for the project. The second part of that, phase 2, is information collection. So we don't know what we need to improve upon, or what we do well, or what we think needs to be added until we know what you have. So we'll have meetings with focus groups to go through what people like about the park system, what they'd like to see improved, and what they'd like to see added to the park system. So we'll have 3 focus groups meetings. We'll have a public meeting to go through that, where we'll ask the same questions of each group. We'll then utilize that information to put together a statistically valid survey. So that statistically valid survey is conducted by a third party. For Lennox, we're going to be utilizing the school district area, not just the city, but the school district area, to get an appropriate number of responses. The questions will be somewhat similar to what we ask in regards to the focus groups in the public meeting, but much more in depth. We'll be asking people to rank the various parks, rank the various uses they'd like to see, and so at the end of it, we'll get a full report that is statistically valid based on the public input, because we have to have so many responses from each area of the district. So once we have that, we utilize that information along with the public information to start developing our initial recommendations. While that statistically valid survey is ongoing, because that takes a number of time to kind of wait for people to take the survey and hear back from, we'll be going through and we'll be visiting each of your parks. So we'll go catalog each park in terms of what you have for play equipment, how many benches, how many tennis courts, basketball courts, soccer fields, baseball fields. So we'll look at how many you have of each element, the condition that it's in, and take pictures, and you'll have essentially a one-page kind of catch-all for each park that shows you what's in each one and the quality of each one. We'll then use that information based on, in conjunction with the public input that we receive, to then work towards phase 4, which is our findings and visioning. So we'll put together a presentation and we say, okay, here's what we heard from the public, here's the statistically valid survey results, here's what we saw as a part of visiting each of your parks, and then we put together kind of some broad goals, so to speak, with to kind of get things started. So we'll say, okay, here's 8 broad ideas based on the public input, based on our visiting of the parks, that we think are good goals to accomplish. We'll see what you guys think of those, and then we'll break that down even further into a step-by-step item underneath each of those goals then. We'll then go through and determine with you guys, okay, is this a short-term, mid-term, or long-term goal? And what are we looking at from a budget standpoint? We won't do like a detailed, in-depth cost estimate of each item of recommendation that we have, but we'll do some broad strokes in regards to do you know if this is a $10,000 item or is this a $1 million item? And so we'll give you kind of a range of what each of the different items cost, whether it's playground surfacing, replacing a playground, adding pickleball courts, all of the different elements. We've got a good handle just based on our experience of what those cost. So based on that, we'll put that all into a final report, like what we did here for Del Rapids, and then that serves then as your roadmap for the park system. Just like you guys have, master plans for your utilities, for drainage. This is the same thing, but for your parks system, quality of life elements.
All right, questions for David?
From phase 1 to 5, approximately how much time does that typically take to get, from the discovery phase all the way through to the draft master plan in front of us?
I'd say it takes approximately 6 to 9 months. The statistically valid survey in and of itself takes about 2 to 3 of those months. I'd say probably 3 of those months, because we take the information from the focus groups, public meeting, we put together a draft list of questions, we kind of go back and forth and we maybe tweak them a little bit. Then we put it out to the public, and then when that usually stays open, we have to wait for so many responses. We have to get at least 150 responses as a part of the statistically valid survey. That can take, usually we leave it open for 3 to 4 weeks, depending upon how quickly we get those responses. And then there's time needed to analyze the data, and then put it into a report that we then can present to you guys. So that's kind of, I'd say it probably starts fast in terms of the focus group meetings, the public meeting, the kickoff meeting. We kind of get that rolling right away. We then do the site visits right away, pending weather, whether we're starting this in the fall or winter, or getting started in the spring and summer. And then when we're doing the statistically valid survey, that just takes a little bit of time before we then take that and start putting together the draft recommendations. So it's 9 months, and then also kind of working with people's schedules and so and so is gone this week, so we gotta push it another week. So just meetings and schedules and push some stuff too.
So this might be more of a question for Nate and Tyson, but with this type of project, would we pay the $70,000 up front, or would we do pay applications throughout the phases?
It'd be invoiced monthly with the rest of the
Okay,
stuff.
so we wouldn't necessarily pay the full 70 in this budget year.
Not necessarily, no. I think the biggest chunk of that is probably gonna come from the survey, and then from the drafting of the plan afterwards. So it's probably late this year money.
Yeah, I guess that's my hang up, is it's unbudgeted this year, and yeah, you said we have excess revenue to offset it, but is this what we wanna, blow that on, right? Not as a bad thing, but
But we know we need.
we have 7 months, 8 months left in the year that things could come up that we may rather allocate those resources somewhere else this year. So that's my only hang up for discussion, I guess, is like timing wise, what makes the most sense for us? I guess what's the big push to start right now versus let's budget and plan for next year?
Yeah, I mean, the challenge on waiting is really, there's not I can't really publish a new CIP until we know what we're looking at. Does that really change things for next year? Not really. We know we've got Oriole Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
We're debating whether or not we should go after the next SRF project with West Fourth, Harrison Lane, and then Ash. Poplar up here. To tackle the remaining gravel roads. But that's a call that we're gonna have to make in the next couple of months if we, I think we're probably past that point, so that's probably a 27 project.
Yep.
When we do Oriole next year. So, is it vital for moving forward on those projects? No. But for having a finalized and, what we were looking for, a more comprehensive capital improvement plan that includes not just streets, water, and sewer, but parks and capital equipment that we've been working on. It's gonna delay that.
Yeah. Realistically, from my point of view, like, before really finalizing the capital improvement plan, we should probably understand exactly what's gonna happen with the prison, and is that revenue gonna be there or not gonna be there? That may dictate timing and what we wanna do, what we wanna tackle, when. But.
And we won't know that for another 3 weeks.
I also echo that, because I think given knowing now that this could take 9 months. I mean, even 9 months from now, just getting the results is gonna take us time to analyze it ourselves, and then when do we typically budget? It's the fall now?
Yeah, August is kind of when we were doing the finance committee review. And first reading was typically September, passing by the end of October.
Yeah.
And now we're pushing that back, I think, by 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah, but if we wait till next year to start, then we're waiting for it's 2027 before we can do anything with it.
So I think, for me, I'd rather wait till this fall to start this project, because then at least we kind of know what Q3 is looking like for sales tax revenue, what our second penny fund is looking like, and we can kind of kick it off in the fall, still wrap up in maybe June of next year,
Is there,
and get time to budget for future plans.
is there anything with
potentially.
timing of the survey that would be best case? Is there anything there we need to consider?
No, I mean, it depends. No, I'd say a lot of time, the last couple that we did, like with Del Rapids, we started in the fall. And then kind of worked our way through spring and summer. Same thing with Watertown. So, I mean, I think I don't think there's any issue
I mean, then like
with that.
people have been in the parks all summer, and then they kind of have a more fresh mindset of what was good, what was lacking.
I mean, and that's something that we could, I think it's something that you could just let the public know, and we could, put out a brief, just information in terms of, hey, this is coming this fall. While you're out visiting the parks, going to events, just think about, as a community, what you'd like to see, pay attention to it more, because it is hard, when you're asking people a lot of these detailed questions, or not detailed, but kind of what's your thoughts on the different park systems, and it's November, and everyone's confined to their homes for because it's colder, depending on what the weather is. So
Even if we waited until like August or late July, I mean, gives us a couple more months to determine if our tax revenue is still trending upward.
Mid-July, we'll know where we're at for 6 months, for the first 2 quarters. And, everything looks good, sales tax wise now, we're probably 6-7% up for the year. But that's not been the case everywhere. Sioux Falls is very worried about their sales tax. It's actually been negative. I'd like to think that we're a little bit more protected in a small town because our sales tax is more for the essentials, right? Your groceries, your gas, those kinds of things. But those are still impacted by an economic downturn.
And I asked Nate if we could get this on the agenda, just with, some of it is honestly seeing all the activity at the new park system that we have now too, and seeing people out and about, and it made me think about, we could keep kicking this can down the road, doing it, but I think of those quality of life things really have a draw to the community. I know when my wife and I were looking at places to live, I honestly went to a whiteboard and made a checklist of things, and bakery, like a donut shop, was #1 for me, but so, maybe someday, we'll see. But it's just a draw, as we're getting warmer weather, I talk to more and more people, not that live in Lennox, but they say that Lennox has such a nice pool, and, you can argue back then, should we have done that or not, and it's a big expense, but it draws a lot of people to our town. And when I listened to the park board discussion, they discussed this a little bit back, you said it was in February, and that was, I forgot when that was.
February was the presentation.
Yeah, and I listened to them, and Steve, our chair of the park board, said, this isn't something that just baseball team uses. This is something that our entire community can use. And it's not just a playground. I mean, this whole park master plan is just what we want our parks to look like, walking paths and all the different activities and events and things like that, and traffic flow, all those things, and not just a playground. So I don't think it's like a rush that we need to get this done right now, but I'd like to get this ball rolling so we can have some better quality of lives and attract other people to Lennox too. So that's kind of where this came from.
Would this include like the green space up in the countryside too?
It would have to, yes.
Yeah.
And that'll be in front of the council soon. We've got the document dedicating all that, transitioning ownership from Nielsen to the city. But yeah, it'll have to include, you know, what is supposed to be dedicated for some park space up there.
If we reference Del Rapids in this instance, were there any drawbacks to starting it in the fall?
No, I mean, at the end of the day, you still have the document that you can utilize and work through to help with budgeting. It's always good to have this, you know, kind of before you start the budgeting process. I know like them, you know, it got a little tight with approvals, because, you know, you kind of work through your, you know, first draft, final draft. You want park board to review it and approve it. You want city council to review it and approve it. And then it's, okay, what do we want to look at for allocation of funds, you know, potentially for the first year, so we keep the ball rolling. And the last thing we want to do is put together this plan and then sit on the shelf and collect dust. So it's always good to start thinking about, as we get into this process, you know, what are some available funds in, you know, 2026, 2027, I mean, even if it's 50,000 or 100,000 or 150,000, to start showing improvements. Because, you know, the last thing is you'll get a lot of momentum with putting together this report. People will get excited about it. You'll be talking about it, like, what do we want to see improved? And then if you sit for 2 years and don't do anything, then everyone's gonna kind of be like, well, why did we do that? You know, we're not gonna use it as a tool. So
I think one of the things this opens us up for down the road, we've in the past received a lot of funding from National Park Service through the Land and Water Conservation Fund. It's administered through Danner. It's a federal grant that's a pass-through. And we've got a lot of facilities. You'll see the National Park symbol on a lot of our park facilities, and that's where the funding from those improvements came from. It's hard to go after those funds if you don't have something put together. Like I said, this is what the community wants. This is what their input has yielded. And I think, you know, timing-wise, I think, you know, given the tools, the communication tools at our fingertips, I feel like we're in a good position to make sure that folks are aware of this whenever it goes out. I know not every town has those capabilities. I don't think Del Rapids does, for example. And so if it's something where we need to make sure that folks are participating in, that can be an easy fall campaign or whenever we do it. We can easily set up a system where we got messages going out on a regular basis and flooding Facebook feeds with the right stuff too.
yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I was just about to say that. So yes, with the grants, a lot of times they want to see that there was a master plan that supports that, and that there was also public input as a part of that plan. So a lot of those two kind of go hand in hand together when applying for those grants.
Well, even backing up to when you had a night in here, you did a capital improvement plan, kind of brainstorming, asked people from the community to come, and we had people from Park Board and people from the community showed up, and this theme within it too kind of came up as well. So we actually had some, just some excitement about that, and it didn't come, you know, just from a Park Board or a council or anything like that. So. And I forget when that was. That was probably the end of the summer or something like that.
I think it was July of last year.
Okay, July, okay. So going back to that too.
Can I jump in for a sec?
Yes.
Yes.
Our sales tax windfall, Nate, do you believe that stems from having El Mariachi this year as opposed to no mariachi last year?
It can't be all of it, but I'm sure it has something to do with it. It wouldn't have anything to do with
What about the lumberyard?
March, for example. You know, January, February of last year, we did not have El Mariachi. We did as of, I think it was last week in February, if I remember right, that they opened.
It was
March. So, you know, looking forward, if that's the case, then we should be pretty close to where we were last year. But we do also have a new lumberyard that opened last summer, late last summer, I think. So that will make a difference as well.
Good deal. With our council moving forward and city moving forward with a director of our Parks and Recreation, we're seeing some new programs, we're seeing some new energy, and I'm concerned about the timing of this as we don't have a year in with this new position to really see the impact of that. And before I want to spend more money on a master plan, I'd like to see really kind of a level set of where we are with this new head that we've added and the energy we're getting from our community through the programs we're offering. So with that being said, I would not be opposed to putting it in the budget for 2026 and steering clear of it right now to see, again, where we actually are.
And you, Bill, then just really trying to give Christie ownership of this too, or just getting her insight after she's been settled for a year?
It's seeing exactly how our community is reacting and all of the response that we're expecting from having a Parks and Rec director. And really all this interaction, Saturday morning stretch, various baton twirling, getting all ages involved in our parks. I think that gives us a much better chance at survey results that are relevant and current as opposed to survey results that don't have this year behind it yet.
Sure.
Yeah, that's why I think
Picture.
at minimum, yeah, waiting to do the survey until late in the year this year. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Let's let her get this summer where she's got a lot of new stuff going on. Give people a chance to see what that's bringing and what more do they want to see.
I support that.
Am I hearing that this is the first item to go in my budget folder for next year?
Can we table it until,
Yeah, there's no motion and
I don't know that I table it, you have to bring
Just
it
discussion.
off the table at some point, right? So.
Yeah, at the next meeting you're supposed to.
Right.
I mean, generally speaking, I mean, we can have a discussion, like, do we think this is a good idea? Like, it seems like,
it's a good idea, but I don't think it's the right time right now.
well, yeah, and that's, I'd like to understand, I think, I rewatched the February meeting over lunch today, and I think someone asked a question like, didn't we do this like 10 years ago? And I think your comment was like, we didn't do exactly this. We did like maybe a truncated version of this. So like, understanding, is this really what we need or not? I mean, I think it'd be great to have, but is it a nice to have or is it a must have for us? I don't know.
Yeah.
I
Is
mean,
this something you want the committee to look further at, or in the meantime?
I guess I watched the February meeting. I didn't watch the meeting where they decided to go. Were they like strong? Like
Yeah, it was
approval
unanimous,
of-
they were definitely in favor of moving forward.
Okay.
Yeah. There was not a whole lot of discussion at that meeting that I recall.
No.
I don't think there's a ton of discussion at that.
And I don't want anybody to get the impression that me personally, I'm against this. I'm not feeling super confident about budget numbers at this point. I know they're trending good right now, but I just don't want to jump into anything.
I think we should act conservatively. I don't disagree at all. I think we should probably wait till end of July.
And I'd like to get Christie's, like, a strong opinion from her of what she's seeing we need. Like, she needs this resource to help, you know, her do her job, but then also what do we need, what else do we need? And she might have some ideas that could spawn. So I mean, getting some insight from her after she's been, yeah, that midsummer timeframe, I think is that maybe we put something on the calendar to, let's bring it back up and have a discussion.
Yeah, in midsummer may be a good time for her to do that, but you know, with today being the
Right.
first day of games. I
Yeah,
think,
she was pretty hectic today, I saw her.
Yeah, they start, umpire training starts in 4 minutes. It's gonna be a long few
I know
weeks,
she had to
think.
scramble to find a backup umpire for us.
She did,
tonight.
yes.
Well, and if we're surveying the school areas too, it'd probably be best to, once giving it enough time for this summer, then going into the new school year to know what those families in those areas, because Our home sales are ever changing right now, so it just makes sense.
And I would say too, to your comment about, getting staff input, that's absolutely,
Mhm.
that's such a big part of this
Yes.
plan too, that's a part of one of the focus groups.
I mean, we wanna set her
And
up for
so-
success.
right.
And,
Right,
is this something that would, how does that all play into this? We've
right,
seen-
right,
I
absolutely.
also think Laura just brought up a thought, you know, the school's doing those tennis courts, we'll have a facility use agreement with them, so that's gonna change what's accessible to our citizens here as soon as that's available, so it might, again, make sense just to wait until people have access to those tennis courts and they can kind of see and experience what that's like, before taking a survey and saying, well, we don't have good tennis courts, well,
We might.
we might, yeah. So, and I also echo what Bill said about, let's see, you know, how people are reacting to these programs, because there's a lot of new programs that Christie's put together with various community members, and that's exciting, but, I just think people need a chance to react to that and kind of experience it before they rate it.
Yeah, I think, you know, we take a survey every year of our recreation programs, and it would actually be pretty similar timing to this if we do it in the fall. I want to make sure that, you know, the master park plan needs to be focused on the facilities, right? What do we have? No, you're going to get verbatim comments in any survey that reflect, I didn't like this about the baseball program. We had too many kids on this team. You will get those comments, but those are outliers and not necessarily something we're looking for input on this. But I do think the quality and professionalism of the programs we're offering does impact people's perception of the facilities.
Yes, I was about to.
Great minds.
So, this is more of like, yes, a facilities, you know, plan, like your, what's physically do you have in your parks, trails, that sort of thing. Recreational programming is not a part of that, that's like a whole other echelon, as Nate said. But, you know, having a lot more programming this summer, new programs, typically that gets a lot more people out into your park system, so that certainly would absolutely help.
They have to work together, like,
Right.
we can't have two different.
Correct.
Yeah, get it, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
And as you get into programming new opportunities for people in the park system, you may get into it and be like, oh God, now that we're trying yoga in the park, God, I wish we really had X, Y, Z, now that we're just starting these new programs, and so some of that stuff you don't know until you start to try.
Yeah, that sounds good. So I think we can kind of put this on the back burner for a couple months and, or.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's a good time to revisit it, but.
If everybody's okay with this coming up again late summer, early fall for discussion, and I mean, if you want, you can pull the trigger at that point, but there's, you know, that's also a good time to kick off our budget discussions, will be kind of at the same time.
Right.
So
Can we put an actual date on it?
I'm fine with that. In fact, I
July
agree with you.
21st, I think that's a meeting date.
What date did you
July
say?
21st. Does that sound fair? Because then we'll have a better idea of the first 6 months of sales tax.
All good, yeah.
And I want to make it known that I appreciate the work that Stockwell and the Parks Board and Christie have put into this and making this come to fruition, and, yeah, we're gonna take it seriously, it's just timing.
Yeah, no, that sounds good to me. Any other questions for David? Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sue.
Yeah.
All right. We're on to item C, which is Garfield Street property acquisition.
Mayor and council, property at 610 South Garfield is one of 3 properties that we need to acquire to connect South Garfield to West 7th. We've got a map and a memo for you to reference. City engineer Mergen and I have discussed the property previously, and acquiring it would be a step in the right direction if the council feels a need to connect those streets. If not, LADC would be interested in the property currently held by the city on West 7th. That's currently set aside for the right of way. So if there's interest in pursuing the property, please provide direction and we'll begin discussions.
Have we reached out to those homeowners?
No, and so the property owner passed away sadly last fall, which is what's spurring the sale at this point. I haven't seen it listed yet, but I would assume that at some point in the future it's going to have to be. And well, we know who is managing the estate, but we have not reached out to them. We'd probably reach out, they're the listing agent from what I understand, so.
So my concern with it, I guess, is if we were to continue this street, it's coming out right at the bend in the road on 7th. I don't know that that really makes sense.
It's not ideal, just given I mean, when I look at these, I think, okay, where am I going to stop and where am I going to be able to see to? I think we'd probably be all right if a certain camper were to move back a little bit, but
Let's move this summer.
it is, there's reason for that.
Yep.
But that changes sight distance, looking to the west, for somebody that's stopping, so. I think it's probably within reason yet, it's something we can task Mitch to find out for sure. I am curious why it was done that way in the
What
first
day
place,
do
but
we
that's.
have that we need this, or that we want this, or I guess just from getting from that Garfield Academy area?
It would make another connection further west. You know, we have very few of those streets that run through town from north to south. From what I understand, and I haven't talked in detail with Mitch about this, but we have tried to acquire this before, and it just didn't happen for whatever reason.
Yeah, I guess the other little bit of concern I had was, we just talked about reducing the speed limit in that area, and like, this would just funnel more traffic potentially to that
Okay.
area. Is that good or bad? I don't know.
I don't know that it would necessarily create more traffic, but it would.
It's just,
You've
it's just
got
an area where
another
kids are
traffic
riding the
conflict.
bikes, and it's just kind of a danger, I guess, for
Yep.
pedestrians.
Intersections create conflict,
Mhm.
and we don't have solid sidewalks through that neighborhood yet.
Right.
And so that's something that would have to be addressed as well at some point.
So when looking at this, it looks like 610 Garfield would essentially lose their parking area. Are we going to allow certain accommodations on how that road kind of would be projected through that?
I think we take the house off, right?
Yeah, we
Or
probably,
is
the
that-
house would have to move altogether. So if we buy the property, we'd have to move that house off there, because the setback, I bet you're looking at less than a 10-foot front yard setback there.
That's what I was wondering.
And I don't know how you would make that work.
So ideally, it would flow straight through.
Flow straight through, access to 601 and to, there's a property that's kind of an L shape around 610. We'd have to figure out a more compliant method with our design standards to make that access work, that driveway work, which I think is very doable, but it's something that we'd have to talk with those property owners about as well. Again, this is just one of 3 properties that we'd have to make an acquisition of. You see the L-shaped property behind 610 and 601 all have a portion of that, what would have been a right of way.
I guess I'm trying to grasp the nice to have versus must have, and where would this line up with some of the other projects we want to do, and, I don't know.
Ability to relocate the house and.
Right. Just,
And again, LADC, if we're not going to exercise this, they're willing to take that property off of 7th and put a home on it. But that will end the possibility of ever connecting there, so.
If this were Academy, I would have a totally different outlook on it. If this were a
An
connecting
Academy going
Academy
through?
because it's a straight connection, but this being on this curve makes me think it's not the greatest idea.
And I think looking forward to the future as well, if you look west of here, 600 feet, we've got an agricultural area that has yet to be developed.
right,
And probably, I doubt that we're going to approve a development plan that does not make a northern connection. for those properties.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You've got Blaine as well that essentially dead ends, but we've had at least space set aside for in the future. Unfortunately, it does not align with South Lake. So there's going to have to be a minor correction in the alignment of the roadway as well.
Bill, I think, you and I were the ones who asked to have this added to the agenda. Did you have any thoughts that you wanted to share?
Yeah, I find it intriguing, but also problematic. As Nate's words, it's not ideal. But I thought having a council discussion would give it exactly what just took place. So nice, good talk through about what is doable, where we could go, what the benefit is, and I'm satisfied with the conversation.
I think we can keep looking into this some more.
I mean, it's not on the market yet, right? Or it's
It's
not.
I think we need to reach out to those neighbors also to see what their feelings are, because clearly they're affected by this.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, but we need to understand who is gonna benefit and who is gonna, like, what's the benefit versus the, I would assume they're gonna be opposed to it.
They probably bought it because it's on a dead end.
Could be. Could be.
That's why I bought my house.
But
And you know, you look at acquiring the property does not mean this is gonna happen anytime soon either, right?
Right.
This could be we've got all kinds of properties that we've
Yeah.
held on
And we
to for
could do
30
something.
years.
I mean, it's like
hoping to
buying
do
an
something
option,
with it.
it's like buying an option, so it keeps that
It's available.
possibility in line, so
Yeah.
I mean,
Maybe we'll put a park
Yeah, okay.
there. Kidding.
yeah, I mean, having more property with that option is attractive. I mean, like you said, worst case is we have LADC develop it and put a house there or whatnot.
And there have been discussions to the west, just north of the T-ball field. We do have a right-of-way reserved for South Plain. But again, it's going to have to realign as it goes north because it's too close to the intersection. So that needs to move regardless. But as that develops further to the west, and again, that could be a 5-year question, it could be a 30-year question. This is only 2 blocks west of Elm, so it's not.
Right, you're not gaining a ton. You're definitely gonna need something between Garfield and Cleveland.
Yeah.
at some point.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Whether that's Blaine or McKinley, I just don't know, you know, there's. McKinley is probably the next one that actually lines up with McKinley as he gets into Long Creek Park. But we also don't own all of that, and not all of that has been annexed yet, so.
Looks like McKinley doesn't quite line up, at least according to
Nope.
parcel browser.
It's off by about 75 feet. I bet all of them are.
Harrison does pretty
I was
close.
gonna say Harrison looks like
Yeah,
it
it's
does.
not bad. This reminds me of the town Correctionville, Iowa. Correctionville, Iowa was named that way because it was where they corrected surveying lines as western Iowa was developed, so. Any direction, no direction. Doesn't seem like anybody's overly excited about this.
Not really.
Okay.
I think there's probably better places to tie in.
Yeah, and it's gonna depend on like, is it 150 grand or is this 500 grand? Like, I don't know what, I'm guessing that's on the lower end of that, but, I don't know.
awful lot of properties going for north of 200 now that I otherwise wouldn't have guessed.
Right.
So I would plan on spending at least that much. We also would need to have a place for the house, right? I mean, we don't,
It's assessed for 246. So probably upper twos. I would guess they're gonna try to get. Not more.
There's other properties I'd rather have.
yeah. Okay.
Okay. So no action regarding this. On to the D, City Council goals and objectives retreat.
Mayor and council, this has been something that's been coming for a while now. And with a new council being seated, I think today is the day to start the discussion. I think city staff would benefit from a high-level discussion of goals and objectives for the coming year. I mentioned previously that the work of staff is largely driven internally by department heads. So if you look at the whiteboard in my office, for example, that's all us. And I'd like to think that we have a generally good feel for where the council wants us to spend our time and energy. But none of those goals and objectives are really developed by the council and owned by the council. And so we've thought about the benefit of having a retreat focused on collaboration goals and objectives. Where do you want to spend our time the coming year? Doesn't need to be an expensive venture. We'll have to have a facilitator, but typically a day of that is not going to be an expensive thing. And I'd like to take some time to figure out, get those costs lined up, figure out what they're going to be. But I think with potential benefits of making sure that staff and council are aligned, I think it's easier for us to plan our resources and budgeting this way, and just connecting the dots in our city government a little bit better. I think the cost of the time and resources well spent. We did budget for this year, $13,000, which I think is more than enough to make something like this happen. We had budgeted for it as sort of a strategic planning session, but I don't know that that's really what we're after yet. I think we need to have some earlier discussions on where we're really at and what you want to spend that time on. So, no action recommended tonight, but guidance and consensus on a path
So
forward.
would you anticipate us with your department heads and you
Yep.
to just brainstorm and
Yes.
Who, have you done one of these since you've been?
No.
to city? Okay.
No.
I was gonna say, I'm just curious, like, who you typically would have as a
I mean-
facilitator? Like, do you have ideas of who that person would be?
Yeah, I've got some ideas, and there are others that are doing some similar work right now that I can get some more names from. I would consider having Dakota Resources coming for this. I think a small group sitting would be good for them. There's some individual facilitators we can use. I think Rick Melman with former leadership South Dakota would be great at this. Rick's got a long resume of planning and executive leadership and working with boards and government committees. So, I would say, yes, if we've done this before, and I keep thinking back, and Billy will be more familiar with this than anybody else on the council will, but the first, I'd say 4, 5 years of my time here were largely focused on fires. And a fire would pop up, let's put this fire out, let's put this fire out. And I think we're finally at the stage where we're really trying to look forward 5, 10 years and start to plan some of this stuff out a little bit better than we have in the past. So.
I guess my only question is I know you budgeted probably higher just as a safety, but I'm just kind of curious what the costs associated with this type of gathering would be.
We probably need a separate space. I don't think I'd want to hold it here. I may even want to suggest out of town somewhere, just away from distractions. The challenge with that is it still needs to be an open meeting. So there are some things that we need to make sure that we have available. So you'd have a facility, you'd have lunch, refreshments, those kinds of things. And then a facilitator and any supplies we need for the day. And of course, staff time, which is accounted for elsewhere.
That was what I was curious about, is if that budgeted line accounts for the staff's time?
No.
And would this be probably not on a weekday, because it couldn't impact regular core hours, right?
Say that again.
It couldn't be during the week because it would impact core hours, or,
It could be during the week. From a staff perspective,
or just planning perspective, like when are you thinking, would you do this on the weekend, or, just out of curiosity, I don't know that it really matters.
any day that's available.
Okay.
I mean, it would not be a challenge for us to dedicate a day to planning,
Okay.
sometime throughout the year.
Nate, I couldn't hear your last comment. What was the timeline you were looking, or the like day of the week or weekend?
No preference really. I mean, I'm sure staff would prefer that we do this during the work week, but you all have jobs too. And it's something, if it's something where we need to spread it out between 2 evenings or a weekend, I don't think that'll be a challenge as long as we give plenty of preparatory time for staff to make arrangements.
Would like,
That was
I
a
think
longer
there's a lot of
answer
merit.
than what I actually gave. But.
would like
I
Prosper.
think there's a lot of merit in what you're trying to set up for us, where we can pull together our brains and talk about what we hear from our citizens in each one of our wards and prioritize and really kind of level set.
Yeah. And for Rob and Laura, this is somewhat new for you hearing this, but it has been a challenge not having that input and feedback going through the year. There's no shortage of stuff that we can work on and are working on. None of that's like driven from this room at a consistent time and place. And that's what we're trying to get at. So if everybody's okay with moving forward with some plans and getting some ideas together, I do think Prosper or the bank would be a great option. I think the bank will be open by the time we're doing this. So,
Yeah, that room looks awesome.
yeah, that's,
So you're thinking later this year, like the fall, or?
it would be later this year, yeah. Ideally, it's something that we have wrapped up before budget, so that we can take that input, take those plans and put it into next year's budget. And it will, I guess every year is a challenging budget year, but we know that we're going to need, we talked about a new police cruiser today. We talked about a new ambulance today. Well, there's $225,000 right there. And it's, when you get to the budget time, it's priority time. It's where are we actually gonna put those dollars, so.
So September or earlier?
Yeah, I would say probably, if we could wrap it up in September, I'd be very happy.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, on to item E, SMGA Membership Advisory Board.
Mayor and Council, with with Alderman Mauer departing her seat tonight, the seat with the Sioux Metro Growth Alliance Membership Advisory Board is now open and needs to be full with a new representative. If no one on council is able to do so, and just to note, the meetings are during the day and require some travel. I am willing to fill that seat. I am at most of the meetings already, but we do have a finance and economic development committee as well. I think that's how I think she was originally chosen, if I remember right. So.
Does anybody have a passion to do that?
I would like to, but I just have a hard time making their meetings.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat.
They're, usually over lunch during the work week.
And they rotate locations, like,
Yeah,
wasn't
Centerville.
the last one in Centerville?
Yeah, in Centerville, so.
Yeah, I feel the same way. It's a very interesting organization and I'd love to be a part of it, but my work schedule just doesn't allow for that.
And everybody is always invited as well. Like if you can make it for a meeting, just holler. We'll make sure that you have enough.
This is monthly?
Monthly,
During the day.
during the day.
Okay.
There is always a risk that you'll be elected to the executive committee as well, which is one more meeting in the month, but I think as the newcomer, that risk is low.
of privilege.
Depends on
We can ask Sharice her take on that,
Okay.
because she has served in both, so.
She was the chair or something.
chair the executive committee, yeah. Lennox is well represented with Sioux Metro Growth Alliance.
Is there any interest from the?
And say, Rob, you probably have the most open schedule, is that something you're interested in, or?
My open time would be late fall till spring, you know, other than that, I'm at the golf course. Not always golfing, I'm
Oh, okay.
working as well. But I wouldn't mind going at some point. Get closer to fall, my time frees up.
Could we have Nate, that you take this appointment and then if we can change this where Rob can get to one of the meetings and just kind of a little bit more understanding with SMGA for your side of it and see if that makes sense and works out. So that's something we can maybe switch to.
I'll make a motion to approve Nate as our representative for SMGA Advisory Board.
Second.
A motion and a second to appoint Nate as the Lennox representative on the advisory board. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. And then, yeah, I would say invite Rob to the next one or whenever it is. And
Yeah, and that would, both Rob and Lori will have a number of opportunities to get some
there you go.
FaceTime with a number of local representatives, so, you know, we'll want to get you in front of the city attorney, city engineer, Tyler Torreson with Sioux Metro Growth Alliance, and coming up later this summer, we'll get you down to and anybody else is always welcome to come down to any of these, but if you've never been to the Lewis and Clark water treatment plant, that is something
We had it scheduled
you
during the
need to
flood
make.
last year.
Yep,
That's right.
Did you ever go then?
I never did.
Yeah, neither did
I
I.
think Danny made it.
I made it, yeah. Not that day, we rescheduled it, but yeah.
Later.
Yeah,
Good time.
yeah, so-
It is an incredible plant. They're just, they're moving their way through phase 3 of the plant expansion right now, which will get us to that 60 million gallons a day. So it's something to see. It really
Yeah.
is.
Mhm.
I'd still like to go.
All right, nothing under personnel. We do have an executive session.
Motion to enter exec?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion second for executive session for personnel, I believe, is that right?
Yeah.
For personnel. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, we are in executive session at 8:24.